It's 12:24. Let's stick with politics and an issue that has been talked about for decades. It's the House of Lords, because peers could be forced to resign if they do not contribute enough to the House of Lords. This is from Lords leader Baroness Smith, who says Labour is also keen to press ahead with a compulsory retirement age of 80. Let's talk more about this issue and speak live to Professor Meg Russell. She's Director of the Constitution Unit at University College London and also author of the book The Contemporary House of Lords, Westminster Bicameralism Revived. Great to talk to you, Meg, as always. Let's remind everybody, first off, how large is the House of Lords compared to the Commons?
Well, it's a movable feast because it is a very unusual institution in having no fixed size. And unfortunately, it has a habit of just getting bigger and bigger. So the House of Commons has 650 members. The House of Lords, as things stand, has over 850. But that's an increase of nearly 200 in the last 25 years. So there's a real problem with the growing size of the place. And therefore, you can see why people want to do something about it. But let's come on and talk about what the various options are. I guess.
Well, how many people are over 80 at the moment? And Baroness Smith putting this retirement age proposal at 80. What do you make of that?
There are currently, I checked this just this morning, there's some wonderful data on the House of Lords website. People want to go and explore. There are currently 190 members of the place who are over 80. So clearly you would shrink it overnight down to sort of where it was 25 years ago if you removed the over 80s. But it is a little bit more complicated than that because some people are put in when they're quite old. There were some people actually over 80 put in at the beginning of this parliament because often the people who go there are people who've made a lifetime contribution to politics or other fields. So you wouldn't probably want to just get rid of all of the over 80s overnight. And Angela Smith is talking about sort of phasing this in, which I think would be more sensible.
This is a Labour manifesto promise, isn't it, to reduce the number in the House of Lords?
It is. They were quite specific. They wanted to do a series of things. One was to remove the existing hereditary peers, which they're in the process of doing. So there's a bill before Parliament now. It's nearly completed its passage. It's back in the House of Commons next Thursday, I believe, to remove the remaining hereditary peers. That's people who, in effect, inherit their seats. So again, it's with the House of Lords, it's always complicated. So it's a bit more complicated than that. But let's just say they inherit their seats broadly. That would remove about 90 people. Which would help with the size, and that would be a permanent change. But they also committed in the Labour manifesto to a series of other things. One was this retirement age, one was removing people who don't attend very often. And then there's supposed to be a second stage of reform to possibly introduce elected members. The problem that I have with all of this, I'll be honest, with the size, I'm very exercised by the size of the House of Lords. I think it does the place no good that it keeps on getting bigger. At the very least, it's reputationally damaging because people think it looks ridiculous. What we need is limits on the number of people who go in, not just removing people who are there. The reason it gets bigger and bigger is because prime ministers tend to be a bit fond of overusing patronage and putting too many people in there. Keir Starmer has actually put nearly 80 people in the last year. So that's nearly cancelled out by the removal of the hereditary peers. Unless you deal with that, this problem is not going to go away.
And then is it the right of a prime minister to put in as many people as they want?
Unfortunately, it is, yes. And I've been arguing for years that there ought to be, and a number of other people have as well. I mean, there was a committee set up by the Lord Speaker. That's, the Speaker in the House of Lords set up a committee that reported 9 years ago on how to tackle the size issue. And I think it's quite widely recognised that, the House of Lords is in many ways a kind of hangover from the past. It's developed very gradually from a very different sort of institution. It is just strange that there's no restriction on the number that can be appointed, and there should be. And people have been saying for years that there should be. So I would be saying to the government, if you want the size to be controlled, you have to do that. And in fact, people, when this bill was being debated, were suggesting that there should just be just a straight size limit. Say it can't be bigger than the House of Commons. Say the Prime Minister can't appoint people unless some people have just left. Like every other parliament in the world, you fill vacancies when they come up. You don't just keep on putting more and more people in there.
Yeah, because I can't imagine many lords. I mean, we can't speak on behalf of all 800 plus, but I can't imagine many would just want to give up their seat or throw the towel in when somebody says, "Yep, it's your time to leave the chamber now." Is there much support within the Lords for reform? Have there been many outspoken Lords on this?
There is a lot of support in the House of Lords for reform. It's always a mistake to think that House of Lords reform doesn't happen because the House of Lords stops it. It's usually because the government and the House of Commons can't decide what they want to do. And, for example, because the Prime Minister doesn't want to give up the patronage power. The House of Lords itself has endorsed becoming smaller. It wants to become smaller because it doesn't want to look ridiculous. And when the government's bill on the hereditary peers was debated recently, there seemed to be quite a lot of support in the chamber for the kind of changes that we're now talking about. So to get people to retire, and so that some of the people who attend less often would simply be removed. There is a demand from the place for change, but I think the size cap is the really key thing to all of it, because the temptation to appoint people to the Lords when you're Prime Minister is just too great. And what they tend to do is top up their party to make it stronger and stronger, bigger and bigger. And then when you get a change of government, the new Prime Minister arrives and they say, oh, there's too many of the other lot in there. I must appoint loads of my people, which is exactly what Keir Starmer has done. The Conservative governments put lots of Conservatives in. Now Labour's arrived. It's disadvantaged in the place. And unsurprisingly, he wants to put lots of Labour people in. But what does that all add up to? Bigger and bigger and bigger.
Interesting chat, Meg. I'm sure we'll talk more about this in the future. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
That is Professor Meg Russell, Director of the Constitution Unit at University College London. As you heard from Meg, I don't think there are many people who know more about the House of Lords and the way it works than she does. It is 12:30.